Over the past 6 months or so, I've been trying to find WaveBird controllers for the Nintendo GameCube in decent condition, and it's pretty tough. They are pricey. So I never knew, was there a good third-party controller out there, good third-party replacement for the WaveBird? I don't know, and I'm still not sure, and hopefully we find that out today with this TTX Tech WaveDash wireless controller for the GameCube. This was sent to me for purpose of review, but you guys know these are my honest thoughts. I don't worry about hurt feelings. What I worry about is giving you guys my honest thoughts and opinions and, my experiences with these things. So this thing's going for about $20. I noticed on like Amazon and other places. Reasonable price, but does it work? So we're going to test this thing out. We're going to take it apart. We're going to test those analogs, all that good stuff. But I did notice on the box, it said that it has rumble built in. I noticed on Amazon everywhere, it says it has rumble built in. I don't know about that, but we'll find out. So here's the receiver. It looks very similar to the original, but just missing that channel selection. Same thing with the controller. So overall, the controller, it does have a little cheap feel to it, but my God, the first thing I noticed was how stiff everything feels. The analog, the C-stick, those things are stiff as heck. It's just crazy. The buttons, they feel okay, a little clicky. The L and R's, they feel pretty close to the originals. So this thing is modeled after the original WaveBird, but did they get the quality the same? I don't think exactly, because when you look at an original WaveBird, everything's a bit looser. Sure, wear and tear, the use of them can kind of contribute to that, but I don't ever remember a GameCube controller being this stiff with the analog. So that's definitely something that may be of concern to some people. We're going to have to test that out. But the first thing I want to do, because they say this has rumble, I just don't believe it. It doesn't feel like there's any rumble motors in there. So we're going to go ahead and tear this thing down and take a look. So getting this thing opened just like an original WaveBird. They copied the mold. Can't really knock them for that. I do prefer the original feel here. Glad it's not some crazy redesign. The only difference is it uses normal Phillips head screws instead of tri-wing, so ease of access to getting in this thing if you need to is very simple, just like the WaveBird. This is kind of where some of the similarities end, the way things are connected. But the main thing we have to point out, and the main reason I opened this up, is I just knew there was no rumble motors in this thing. There's no room for them with the way this board is designed, with the way this controller is designed. Having to have that 2.4 gigahertz, all that stuff built into it just didn't seem like, where's the room for this to be? But had to point that out. You're not getting rumble with this. The packaging and the listing state that it has rumble, but it just doesn't. I don't know why stuff like that slips through. Like, you're not, people are going to address this. They're going to bring it up. So that's one thing that this company should address with these controllers. But looking at everything else, we have some basic membranes for the buttons, not the highest quality. They are a little stiff. That's why you're getting a little clicky presses on the buttons. But everything inside, I think, is decently well put together. I can't complain too much with the design of this. I've seen very sloppy controllers put together. This one doesn't seem too bad. But the main thing that I have to address is the sensitivity of the analogs. So I had to test the range of motion on this analog because it had me a little worried with how stiff it was. So I used a homebrew program to kind of test the range of motion and also tested it out in Smash Bros. In the character select screen, comparing it to an original. And yeah, I immediately noticed the stick and the C-stick, the analog and the C-stick are very, very sensitive. You hit that full range of motion with just the very small amount of pressure on the stick, just a little bit of movement, and boom, you have full range of motion. So it is very overly sensitive. Would I recommend this for a professional Smash player? Probably not. I'm not in that scene, but I don't think people prefer this. For a casual, average player of GameCube games, maybe this is something you can get accustomed to. For the price, maybe. But like I said, comparing it to an original, you're really seeing the differences here. The range of motion, the numbers register higher, including the analog bumpers as well. Those, the L and R, they're a lot more sensitive than an original controller as well. I know some of this can be attributed to, the use of a controller over time, but really, I don't think original controllers were ever this sensitive or stiff. So that's something I really had to point out here. with this controller, comparing it to an original WaveBird. But with that said, it's kind of like, it's not too bad for the price. Myself, my own personal preference would be an original WaveBird. I'll just have to bite the bullet and buy more of them, but it's just an adventure trying to get decent quality, decent condition used WaveBird controllers. But I also had another problem with this controller, unfortunately, that needs to be addressed. So my biggest problem, is the receiver that came with this device. No issues with connecting or anything like that. It's just the quality of the receiver, the way it was constructed. And as you see, original receivers, they kind of sit nicely. They do have a little bit of movement to them. This one has a little bit more movement than usual. It feels like the connector is not sitting properly. And as you saw, this is the first time I plugged it in, pulled it out, and it pulled the plug a little bit. It extended out past where it was supposed to go. So that was a little concerning. I was a little hesitant in plugging this thing back in, but I wanted to double check. Is it going to do it again in another port? And yes, it did. So I was just like, man, what's going on here? So I tore this thing down, had to find out what the issue was. And I found a couple issues. The first issue was, upon tearing this thing down, is the way it's held together on the inside. There should be 4 screws, but you know, whatever Chinese manufacturer put this together, they cheaped out and they only used 2 screws. So that is kind of an issue. And it also turned into where those 2 screw posts were kind of stripped. So I had to swap the screws around so it would hold it in place properly. That was kind of jacked up. Now, to fix the issue that I had with the actual plug pulling in and out anytime I inserted it, like, it wasn't damaging anything, but it definitely wasn't right. So disassembling it further and taking a look at it, there's the metal prongs from the plug, they're supposed to be bent in a little bit, so I bent them back in. One of them was just straight up, and that's why it was just pulling out, because whoever assembled this, I don't know if they did it by hand or machine, but it missed pushing over one of those metal pieces to kind of brace it in place. Isolated incident, I have no clue. But this is the controller that I received, the receiver that I received in this package. And if you do wind up grabbing one of these, you're going to have to open it up and double check those things. You don't want this plug to get stuck in your system. So for me, it's kind of hard to recommend this. You know, I did fix all those issues, plugging it into my system now just fine. It comes out, the plug doesn't remove or extend past how it's supposed to. But the quality is just, it's definitely nowhere near Nintendo quality. And that's kind of to be expected. But to this extent, it's some quality control issues, not necessarily with the design. I did go over my concerns with the sensitivity and how everything's put together. But with that receiver, that's a quality control problem that should have been caught. Maybe I just got one that didn't pass through quality control. I don't freaking know, but it's not really something I like to have to deal with. I don't want to have to tear down controllers and fix receivers to have an okay product. But for me, hard to recommend unless you're just like so desperate to have a wireless controller for your GameCube, and $20 is okay, and you don't want to, you know, you can find WaveBirds for around 40 or so. Just, you really have to look. I've gotten lucky on them in the past, but for me, it's been more of a thing where I've had to buy multiples and rearrange parts to get decent controllers. So you kind of can get invested in it, but if you're looking for something, I'll have a link in the description if you want to take a look at this. If you have any other recommendations for third-party wireless GameCube controllers, let me know. But I noticed after really digging into this TTX controller, it looks like a lot of companies are just selling the same the same product. They're just rebranded. So I'm not really sure, but if there's another solution out there, I know about RAFnet adapters, I know all that stuff. But as far as a WaveBird controller, like a suitable replacement, let me know in the comments down below and I will check it out, review it and whatnot. But for me, this product's, it's a no-go. It's not for me, just being honest there. So really do appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And with that said, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out, bye-bye, and boom. Bye.